Lesson 11, Conditionals. Decision-making on computers are based on statements called Boolean expressions. A Boolean expression is any expression that can only be evaluated to either true or false, and this can be particularly useful when used to compare the properties of two sprites. For example, you could figure out which one is larger or placed higher up. In the next few puzzles, we'll use simple Boolean expressions to compare sprite properties. So the objective for this one is to predict what's going to happen. If we read the code below, we need to find out what will happen. So we've got a variable, sprite1, a variable, sprite2, and then we have console log sprite1.y equals sprite2.y, and then we have console log sprite1.x is greater than sprite2.x, and then sprite1.x is less than sprite2.y. And then it draws the sprites. So it's trying to evaluate whether these statements are true or false. So let's see what we think will happen. If we look here, sprite1.y equals sprite2.y, is that true? If we look at these two, yes, it looks like the first one should be true. And then the next one, sprite1.x, is greater than sprite2.x. No, it doesn't look like it is, so it should be false. So we've got true, then false, and let's look at the last one. Sprite1.x is less than sprite2.y. Sprite1's x is less than sprite2.y, so that should be true. So we've got true, false, true. Let's see if we did that correctly. And we have down here in the debug console, true, false, true. So it actually prints out whether it's true or false in each of these statements. Let's move on to the next. We're going to go ahead and skip this video, but you can watch it on your own. And then we have some more Boolean expressions that can evaluate to either true or false. In this exercise, we're supposed to modify the values of the sprite properties so that each of the Boolean expressions evaluates to true. So let's look here and see what kind of expressions we have here. We've got var sprite equals create sprite at 100, 200. Sets the animation to Apple, sets the rotation to 30, and the scale to 1.5. Then we've got a sprite2 with animation of caret, rotation of 60, and a scale of 0.5. And it says to not edit this. So let's look at this here and see if we can make these true. Alright, first one, sprite2.x is equal to sprite2.y. So let's look up there. Here's the x and here's the y. So no, they're not equal. So let's make them equal. We're going to come up here and we'll say 300 for that. So now the x and the y should be equal. Sprite2.x equals sprite2.y. Okay, next one. Sprite2.rotation is less than 40. Let's look up there. Sprite2.rotation equals 60, so let's make it less than 40. We could say 35. Let's look at the next comparison. 3. Sprite1.scale equals sprite2.scale. So let's look at the scale for sprite1 and 2. Sprite1, 1.5, sprite2, 0.5. So let's make them both 1.5. Now they should be equal. And then if we go to the next one, sprite.x is greater than 150. That was sprite1. Okay, sprite1.x is greater than 150. And right now it's at 100, so let's just make it 200, which is obviously more than 150. And then the last comparison, 5, sprite2.y is less than 200. So let's look at the sprite2.y value. It's at 300, so let's make it less than 200. So 150, and make sure that everything else looks good. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it and see what happens in the console log. So we've got, oh, false. So we did something wrong with the first one. The first comparison was sprite2.x equals sprite2.y. Oh, because we changed the sprite2.y at the end. So let's go ahead and fix the sprite2.x so it matches the y. So now they both have to be less than the 200 since they have to be equal to each other. So let's run that again. And we've got true, 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 true. All right, next one. Exercise 5, matching comparison operators. Match the Boolean expression to the English description. Is the dog sprite rotation less than the cat sprite rotation? Dog.rotation less than the cat.rotation. Is the dog sprite x less than the cat sprite x? So dog.x less than cat.x. Is the dog sprite scale greater than the cat sprite scale? Dog.scale greater than cat.scale. Is the dog sprite's x greater than the cat sprite's x? Dog.x is greater than cat.x. And the final one is the dog sprite's x equal to the cat sprite's x. So these two are equal. And then we can submit it. All right, exercise 6. In the past few levels, we've been comparing values of sprites to find out whether something is true or false. Let's start putting that in the context of an animation. So the program draws a race car and a finish line. We're going to figure out when the race car crosses the finish line. The sprites have all been set up for you. Add a console log statement inside the draw loop. So for the console log, that's going to be found in the variables menu. So if we come here in the variables, at the bottom here before comment is console log. So let's go ahead and see if we can put this down here. So we'll just go ahead and log this here. Add a Boolean expression inside the console log that asks, is the x position of the race car less than the x position of the finish line? So we can go to math, and we can find the less than operator, and drag it in here. And we're going to say race car.x is less than finish line.x. I just had to check on the name, line.x. So let's see what happens. False stays at false, and then it becomes true once it crosses the finish line. So that looks like it worked just fine. And let's move ahead to lesson 7, or exercise 7. More practice with Booleans. Let's use one more Boolean expression to check the condition of a sprite. You can use a console log command to check whether its scale is 2 yet. So we're supposed to add a console log statement, which again was in the sprites, actually variables section. Variables section. Console log message, let's put that inside that draw function. And once the fruits.scale is greater than 2, it should give us the message if it's true. So it's checking it and finding out when it is greater than 2. So we could say, I'm actually going to just delete this. We could use a math operator, but I'm just going to type it in this time. Fruit.scale is less or greater than 2. So let's see how this works if we run it. So we got false, false, false. And it's slowly growing and eventually becomes true when the scale is 2 or more. And here's some more information on how to use comparison operators. And a video you can watch on your own. Then we'll finish up with the next couple of exercises. So the Boolean expressions you used earlier allow us to ask questions, but in order to respond to those questions, we need to use an if statement. So we've got our little if block here. If statements usually go inside your draw loop because we want to check them each time that the draw loop runs. So for this one, we've got to add an if statement after we update the position of the race car. So if we go to control, come over here and bring this in, and let's find out when the race car is being updated. Racecar.x equals racecar.x minus 2. So I'm going to put the if statement there. And we're going to move the Boolean expression from the console log statement to the condition of the statement if race car.x is less than the finish line.x, then we want to say winner on the screen. So let's go ahead and go to drawing, and we'll add text. And we can say text is going to say winner, and let's have it at 100. And we can take out this console log. And it says winner right there. Very small. We could have made it bigger with using this text size. And number 11, changing fruit. Now that we know how to use if statements, you can do more than just check if the apple has reached a scale of 2. You turn it into a pear once it happens. So we're going to use a conditional in the draw loop to check whether fruit.scale is greater than 2. If it is, we then change the fruit's animation to pear. So let's go like this, and let's see here. Go to our control if, okay, and we've got fruit.scale equals fruit.scale plus 0, 1, and then instead of console logging if the fruit scale is greater than 2, we're going to say if the fruit.scale is greater than 2, I'm going to get rid of this. If fruit.scale is greater than 2, then we want to go to sprites and come down to sprite.setAnimation. And let's actually shrink this down if we have a little more to see. And we'll change this to fruit.setAnimation equals pear. Now there's a challenge here that says, can you also make the fruit stop growing once it turns into a pear? We can say let's see here. If let's say if fruit.scale is less than or equal to 2, then we'll change the fruit scale and make it grow. So let's see if this works. Okay, and it stops growing. So we had two if statements. The original one was if the fruit.scale is greater than 2, it's going to change to a pear. And then we modified our fruit.scale equals fruit.scale plus 0, 1 to make it only happen if the fruit.scale was less than or equal to 2. So as long as the fruit's less than or equal to 2, then the fruit scale keeps increasing. And then if the fruit scale becomes greater than 2, then the fruit.setAnimation becomes a pear. So once it becomes a pear, then it's then greater than 2, and it can no longer grow. And that's it for lesson 11.